In this episode of the Success Secret podcast, I have with me Zach Oehlman to talk about how to learn and grow rich and the path to having it all, how to win in your own life. Raised on an Indiana farm with big dreams and entrepreneurial spirit, Zach Oehlman is a master of transformation, a seasoned valuation consultant, and a visionary in real estate investing. Zach has built a robust community around the life cycle of entrepreneurship, from launching and scaling businesses and then reinvesting in real estate to foster sustainable wealth. With his journeys spanning over 20 countries, Jack not only shares his extensive business acumen, but also teaches financial literacy to inspire global prosperity. So, Zach, welcome to this episode of the Success Secret podcast.
Thanks for having me, my friend. I'm excited for the conversation.
I'm glad you are with me for this episode of the podcast. So, first of all, because this is the Success Secret podcast, throughout your journeys, travels, and business, moving from being in real estate and entrepreneurship and different areas, I want to learn from you, or what do you think of generally is success to you, and how do you see other people around you? How would they define success, do you think, or have certain misconception of what success is?
So I would define success as, are you living life on your terms, driving for what you want? Because I've accomplished many things in my life. And so my first thing was just to get through college, right? I was like, ooh, score. And then the next thing was like, oh, go get the corporate job. Ooh, check mark. And then I got to where I wanted to be. I was making six figures and, young kid, 27 years old, and I hated it. And so I wasn't inspired by the life. And so I said, I want to continue to travel. I want to do this business thing. And then I quit my job. So I check, right? And then I just kept checking all these check marks off until one day I had what I could think of was traveling the world, helping people and making money. And I wasn't happy, right? I was like, oh my gosh. And so what I've learned is the pursuit of everything, the pursuit of the next thing is what brings me joy, as long as I'm pursuing the thing that I'm passionate about. And obviously, having that takes finances, right? And so I think finances is a huge part of buying your time back so you can get all of the extra things to help you work on yourself.
Definitely, that's very important. So now I would think that Napoleon Hill has a book called Think and Grow Rich, and you
Yes, I'm actually going to the head of Think and Grow Rich is coming down for dinner tonight in Colombia, Medellin, and I'm going to dinner at a mastermind with them.
sorry, I didn't catch that.
The head of the Think and Grow Rich program from Napoleon Hill is coming to dinner tonight in Medellin, Colombia, and I'm going to the mastermind.
Oh, cool, awesome, that's
Yeah.
cool. And you have Learn and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
So same pattern, different word.
Well, I started thinking about one day, I was like, thinking is different than learning. And I was just I wanted to, have it all in the sense of the money, the finances, the freedom to travel, my amazing relationship with my wife. And I'm like, well, what do I need? What's missing? And anytime there's something always missing, right? And so, well, how do you fill the missing? You have to go learn it. Pick up a book and learn how to be happy. Pick up a book and learn how to be a digital nomad. Pick up a book and learn how to be a great husband. Whatever it is, there's a book for it. And you have to read it and you have to go through this process of learning it. And that's where the idea of learning Grow Rich came from.
Mm. Yeah, and also speaking of speak about books, like he has a like different books, multiple books, but
Yeah.
there's also the Law of Success, which is a
Yeah.
great.
18. I've
Yeah,
read it. Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't yet, but I should. But because this, I would think it will be more, it will be greater aspects into things, I would say. Because when you say law of success, so they would assume that there is a law for us to succeed in whatever it is that we are looking for, as we mentioned earlier. So a lot of things to cover. But now, in your experience, you mentioned goals, right? So,
Uh-huh.
and you mentioned reading. So, like, I hear a lot of people talk about if you read the five books on a certain topic, you would kind of be some kind of an expert on something on that topic or material. So do you think that's true? Like, I don't think it will reach to a certain level of expertise of being an expert, right? But it also gives you certain knowledge that other people don't have. But the important things, like after, like in general, whatever it is that we learn, right? You have to kind of take action and implement, because if you learn and you do nothing, it's useless. What do you think about this?
Well, I absolutely agree with you on that. And so logically, because I used to be a financial modeler. So I would have to build out in corporate America, I did high-end theoretical finance, which meant I had to think a lot about the mechanics of money. Like I valued private, non-marketable, illiquid private assets, very complicated. And so I had to do all of this thinking of how does this company make money? Because like when you're doing a 5, 10 year projection model, right? So I've done a lot of thinking and thinking and thinking. And so I break everything down like that. And if you logically think about this, education alone is worthless. Action alone is reckless, right? And so when you put the two together, you actually get something. And so it also a lot of other things in my eyes. It's like, well, who's your mentor? Who's guiding you? Because I've let some pretty precarious individuals lead me. I didn't know it at the time, or else I wouldn't have done it. But they were, leading me down a path that helped them, not necessarily a path that helped me. And so you have to be careful who your coaches are, who your mentors are. Make sure you create the environment of success, right? Which what we really focus on in our communities, creating that environment, which includes principles and values, ethics, integrity, personal responsibility, intention, things like that.
Hmm. These are all awesome things, that being authentic, trustworthy, a human at the end of the day. Like, these are very
Right,
important things, right? Right,
right.
very important things. But also you mentioned that being, for example, taking action without any, let's say, maybe knowledge is kind of reckless. So I
Uh-huh.
kind of, that's a new perspective into things, because like, if you jump into something that you don't know anything about, you could fail like maybe for years, because someone, like you mentioning, also a mentor. But if you have some kind of idea what you are jumping into, you might have some ups and downs, but not all downs, maybe. So it could
Right.
be like a good, or you would be someone who would learn quicker from their mistakes, which is something very good. But now, in that regard, so what do you think is the most difficult thing people in general, like, think of doing? Like, do you think that they are not learning enough anymore? Are they not implementing things anymore? Are
So
they influenced by, let's say, negative people? What is the issue with people that not achieving or having it all, as you said, as we said?
I would say it's all has to do with their environment. So I'm very intentional on who I spend my time with. I do my own mastermind 6 days a week, not just for my clients community, but for me, right? Because it keeps me accountable. And then I'm also a student or member of other people's community. And so what I've learned is you have to create an environment of success. You have to have personal development. One of the things I think people don't focus on enough is their emotional intelligence. There's studies that show 80 to 90% of your success is based on your emotional intelligence. They say the IQ actually opens the door, but unless you can understand emotional intelligence, you're not going to rise up through leadership because you don't get people. And so, there's this dichotomy right now where I think people just want the 30, 60, 90-day success. They follow these social media influencers, and a lot of them are portraying a life that isn't a reality from we'll call it timeline, right? So, I mean, it took me 16 years from the day I said I want to travel the world, help people make money. I was about 16 or 18 years old, right? It took me 16 years to make that happen. I had to go to college. I had to go figure out. I worked for free for 3 years. I got an entry level, and I just kept working my butt off. And then everyone goes through that process. There's not anyone that you cannot skip that process of developing yourself. But what people do is they go out and they sell a course on how to, and then they sell it. I love using the analogy of PhD level, right? They're a PhD level, right? Selling a program to a second grader. Like it's not gonna work. And I've racked my brain around this because I've had masterminds with thousands of people in them. And I'm like, why aren't people having success? And I just kept asking it and asking it. It's like because they're not ready for PhD level stuff. They're ready for third grade next, right? And so what we've done is I've broken up business or the business structure into different segments like that. And we just share it. And it's what we do is we start with finance and then we go operations, then we go sales, and then we go marketing. Get your life in order, and it starts with your finances, because your finances are going to help you get it all, but you sort of have to get your life in order to get your finances in order. So it's this fun little dance.
Mm. So now what you're talking about here is very important. You talked about masterminds and you talked about the environment, but someone would say like it is hard to control the environment. Like you are living physically in a certain place. Yes, I might develop myself personally, like for example, reading books, listening to this or to that, certain things, but ultimately certain things would remain the same. So I would say personally, like these kind of things, the things that you cannot control, you should maybe avoid to a certain degree. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so it's hard when you're first starting, right? When you're trying to get out of the disempowering environment. And so to give you an example, when I first started this world of personal development, but business ownership, I was still working for somebody. I hated my job. Like absolutely hated it. I was drinking every night. I was smoking cigarettes. I was living on fast food, just stressed out to the moon, working 80, 100 hours a week. And then I went home to a house that was not a great environment. I was renting a room from somebody because I was trying to save some money because I was never home. I was renting a room from somebody, and everyone there had challenges, and all they did was talk about their challenges. And so I would get sucked into that conversation because I didn't know any better at the time, right? And so what I did is I went and I got a room by myself, right? I changed my environment. At least I got out of my job. And so I went and got a room by myself. And then I got another job that I actually enjoyed for a moment, right? And so I changed my environment, but it was a tweak by tweak by tweak. And then I quit my big six-figure job to go do a 40-hour a week consulting gig that still paid me. It was like $60,000. So I completely went from this 10-year path, a couple of years later to I'm working 40 hours a week for a consulting for a energy company. So the rest of the time I can focus on my business and me. And then I quit my job, right? And then, it was just, and then it was the next chapter. I didn't go from I hate my job to I love my life. It's been a process. And I think the challenge is very few people are real with people today because people are, I want to be careful of the words I use here. People, my coach does not baby me. I ask my coach to lean in. And if you like, it's hard to confront your own stuff. And so it's hard to take personal responsibility.
Mm.
It's so easy to blame others. And so I think that's a great way to say it. People don't take personal responsibility for their life. And is it harder? I started this, God, 10 journey 16 years ago. It's easier today to live a life that you want if that's what your intention is, right? If you want to focus on a crappy life, guess what? You can get that too. But it's like, what are you focusing on? Who are you hanging around? What books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to? What are you exercising? Are you eating? Are you trying to like be somebody? And guess what? Just like a tree takes a year or two to grow a beautiful fruit, you're a beautiful fruit and it's going to take some time to develop.
Yeah.
And so I think people need to understand expectations. And
Mm.
that's one of the things I really try to set for people so they don't quit. Because typically what happens if they have wrong, this is my occurrence, is if they have wrong expectations, they think they're a loser and then they quit because they think they're a loser, not just understanding that it's part of the process.
Like I like what you said there. Like people are not being true to themselves. They like to show something different than they are, and
Oh
like
man.
themselves. And you mentioned influencer, for example. The other day, I watched a video of someone basically saying you can rent a private jet for $150 for only $150 an hour or 2 hours. So it's not like that. It's hard for someone can brag about being his in his own private jet and make people think that he has a private jet when he does like it's not, now it's easy. You can basically rent anything in the world now. So it's not something that's hard, but we have to be true to ourselves. But
Right.
also, I want to go back to the to this emotional intelligence you talked about. So, like, how is the formula of the or the framework of growing not only rich but growing as a human being in general in business and life and having it all as we are saying this emotional intelligence, how big it is and how big it is playing a role. And can you expand on it a little bit from your perspective?
Yeah, and so I would say it's everything. You know, you're asked how big it is. It's huge. Like I'm a product of it because I focus on the intellectual side of stuff. I was very good with finance, financial projection models, understood finance, and I wasn't, I wanted to make big money, millions and billions. And I was like, I don't see how I could do this. And then I started learning about my emotional intelligence and like, oh, I actually have to go talk to people. What? Like, because I was so socially awkward. And so I've really worked on myself. And I think that is huge, is to understand when you're upset, is to understand that it's okay to be upset, is, all of this stuff that we're told. Because my biggest challenge was I didn't even know how to be. Like I was so awkward around people. I was so awkward around the professional industry because I was a farm kid. And so I didn't even know how to be until one day somebody, said, Zach, just literally be yourself. And I had to go through a bunch of training to like really get that. But it's okay to be whoever you are. And there's an impact to every person I'm being. And so if someone's being a jerk and I'm a jerk back to them, well, we're going to continue to know how that relationship goes. But if someone's a jerk and I'm actually kind to them, oh, that's how you diffuse people. That's how you bring calm and ease into people's life. Like that's how you comfort people. That's how you care for people. And once you learn how to do that, you first have to understand it in yourself, and then you can bring it out to the world. And that is what, in my opinion, makes great connections. And that's where you can have beautiful relationships that transpire into having it all, the money, the spouses, you have that relationship with your spouse, your kids, is to know what impacts you have on the people around you, because you, by your actions, you can bring somebody up to the next level of upset, or you can bring them back down to the level of calm if you know who to be in that moment.
Hmm. So it's like when we talk about all of these things, like it's like we are talking about kind of purpose for the humor, right?
Well, I would say, it's yeah, I would say I definitely we need a purpose, but I think it's understanding human emotion is right. And so, for example, I have team members that prepared a lot of time for a presentation today. This is actually a real life story. Um, and they did it and they bombed it accordingly, right? I wasn't there to see it, but I had to deal with the impact of it. And so I had to know who I need to be right now, because one of my amazing team members is crying. They're upset because they did this huge presentation and some of the slides got messed up and they didn't know what to do and it didn't go as they thought in their mind. And in my mind, I was like, welcome to success. Like, is this going to happen? This isn't but I didn't say that. And so I had to know what would matter at the time. And so all I did was I was just with the person. I let them vent for for a little bit. I let them get it out, and I reminded them that they're great,
Mm.
right? And that they had a little bit of about an hour worth of crying, but now they're back up on the saddle and they're going after it. And so that took a lot of me knowing who to be in the moment because the old Zach would have not known how to handle those situations. And so, and then everyone's a little bit different too. And so that if you can get to that level, you can move mountains, you can inspire people, I mean, people will follow you to the ends of the earth because you take care of them. And that's, I believe, about, building a life that rates it all is about having those type of great people around you.
Yeah, that's very important. Like when you think about certain things, like if you have certain type of people, for example, that they are older in age, but they still want to play video games. Now, yeah, someone might say there are competition and money, whatever, but generally, it's not a good idea for most people, I guess. So you don't want to continue that and waste your time drinking coffee or whatever it is. So I think also here I'm catching about like as we grow older, we need to become wiser and make certain choices or decisions in a better way. Now we could make a mistake, but eventually we should be, let's say, maybe the leader of ourselves because eventually we need to make these choices or decisions, right? Even if they were wrong, but we try to pivot along the way, which is very important, right?
Yeah, I love the way you said the leaders of yourself. And I just heard this beautiful quote, and it says, if you think someone's ruining your life, you're right. It's you. And if you just really get that personal responsibility, leader of yourself, I mean, and that's what I ended up telling one of my team members that just had that a little bit earlier. I said, you could look for everything that's bad and how you messed up. And guess what? The answer, I think you said it earlier. You just keep asking and asking and asking, and you're going to get an answer. The question is, what questions are you asking? Where did I suck? How bad did I suck? Do other people think I suck? You're going to get an answer. But if you change the question to, wow, what was great about that? What could I learn from that? Like literally, it helps shift the context of your frame of who you're being. And then, I mean, but it takes a lot of or I call it mental horsepower to stay over there because blaming others is easy.
Yeah, yeah. This is the issue. Like we still want sometimes a lot of us, even we grow older and become adults, like we still blame a lot of things on other people when it's on us. Like we have to be like taking responsibility eventually for ourselves. We cannot stop blaming others. Like even if you drive in traffic, like there is traffic, like you cannot move, and someone is like keep honking the horn, like it's not moving, it's not going to move. If there is an accident, it's not going to move until it's going to move. So
Right.
you cannot, there are certain things you cannot control, you can stay away from, and the things that you can control, you can improve in those areas and go further with the process, which is
Totally.
very important. So throughout your travels, your business, and things that you do, what and the masterminds also, what is the best and the worst advice that you heard or received?
The best advice, um, it's sort of the same, as I think about this. That's it. The best advice I got was go for it. The worst advice I probably got at the same time was go for it. Right. So I wish looking back, and that's what I've created my life around today is being, I look at the next generations and I feel a responsibility for them because, they look to their elders, the people before them for wisdom, direction, just like I do. And I think a lot of them are getting pointed in the wrong direction or let me rephrase. I think there could be a better direction if people were just honest with them, right? Like, hey, here's the reality of life. And so, uh, if you don't have a plan and a budget and a vision, like, good luck. You're not going to live a fulfilled life. And guess what? It takes work. And guess what? You're going to want to quit. And just like constant over and over in their heads, so they get that they can have anything they want. They can live a life with purpose and help people and make money. And the only way they can do that is, what is your vision? What is your plan to get there? And there's a process. Where are you? You literally can't do anything without a plan and a budget. It's like, oh, I'm going to go out to eat tonight. Where are you going and how much do you want to spend? Right? Hey, I'm going to go out for the weekend. Where are you going and how much you want to spend? In life, people don't ask, where are you going and what's your budget? They just sort of meander and they sort of almost give up. And I think myself, I went through that same process. And it was because I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have somebody to say left, right, left, right, left, right, right. I had I had one person that would coach me left, and then another person would say, well, that's not right, Zach. You need to go up. And then a third person says, well, those two people are stupid. Go down. And it was just like, I'm like, who's right? Right? Who's right? And what I've learned is principles and values. If you can have the principles and the values and the ethics and take personal responsibility with intention, you'll get to wherever you're going. And that's what I wish somebody would have just kept repeating in my ear every day, because that's all I'm telling people right now.
Awesome. That's awesome. So, but eventually, it is that we have to trust ourselves, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Try to implement, like we talked in the beginning, learn and implement, take
Right.
action. So we'd learn faster. And if you are on the wrong way, you would fix that or uh, change your way as quickly as you can. So, and you would go back to the, let's say, the right path for you,
Right.
right?
Right. For you. That's the biggest thing for you. My spirit said travel, Zach. I want to go motorcycle. I want to go adventures. I hang out with tribes. That's all my spirit told me. And I was trying to shut it up by doing something for money. And so I figured out how to have it all, the money, the travel, the great relationships, the freedom of whatever. And I still love my job. I still love my work. So,
Awesome, awesome. Well, Zach, where can people learn more about you, get in touch with you?
yeah, the best place is I give all my master classes away. That's my commitment to the world. All my my master classes for free forever at learnandgrowrich.net. That's where it's a school community. We put everything there. I hang out there. I answer all the questions you have in there for free. We have entry level masterminds for $97. Just trying to point people in the right direction and do good by the next person.
Awesome, awesome. So that's very awesome. And thank you very much for joining me. We had a great perspective into things and new things that eventually people have to look into things, learn to earn and find their own way or pave their own path. I think I'm not sure, but maybe there is a quote, if there is no way, create your own. So it could be
Just
hard
go.
to dig with a spoon, but you should maybe. So that's important.
What else you gonna do, right? What else you gonna do with your life? Go create something.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Zach, for joining me for this episode of the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, my friend.